It was early morning, and it was getting light outside. The city roads were empty, and only an ambulance with its siren blaring was rushing to the hospital, deafening everyone around it. A young woman was in the ambulance car. She was only 30 years old. Dr. Kate kept monitoring her condition, checking her pulse and blood pressure, and frowning. She whispered softly, "Everything's going to be all right, dear. We are almost there." A tear rolled down the patient's face, and she blinked understandingly. The paramedics delivered the patient to the hospital and went to the next call. The young nurse Alice marveled, "Kate, I really admire you. You are a true professional. How could they fire you from the therapy department?" "I didn't even realize at first that the patient had a stroke." She even smiled and only complained of a headache. She even said it was a nervous breakdown and that she had a fight with her husband. "But you immediately recognized the terrible disease. You saved her life." The woman nodded. "Remember, Alice, the first signs of a stroke are a headache and slurred, incoherent speech. Do you remember how and what the patient said?" "That she was drunk, but there was no smell of alcohol. The corner of her lip was already pulling down. It's an obvious symptom. The first 2 hours are very important in case of a stroke. If you don't make it in time, it's all over. A person can either die or be permanently disabled. It's a very insidious disease. And about me being fired, I didn't want to make a deal with my conscience and steal from people. So I became inconvenient. But that's okay. I'll handle everything. I'm not afraid of hardship. I'm used to it." The shift was over. Kate was heading home on a crowded bus. It was a long ride. She closed her eyes, which were watering from lack of sleep and fatigue, and began to recollect the last events in her memory, and it made her want to cry. 10 years ago, after graduating from university, life had seemed amazing to Kate. She got an interesting job as a therapist in a hospital, got married recently, and bathed in the love and affection of her beloved man. At that time, Peter had just graduated from university, dreamed of a career as an engineer, got a job at the big factory, and everything was going well in their young family. But over the years, everyday life was killing love and passion, and gradually a wall of misunderstanding and mutual grudges began to rise between the spouses. Kate spent most of her time at work, took extra night shifts, and even worked part-time in the ambulance, trying to cover the holes in the family budget, because Peter never managed to build a career. It was all about his bad temper and sick ambitions. He always quarreled with any team and didn't stay long in any company. Moreover, he reproached his wife that she didn't spend enough time with her family, and they still didn't have children, but it was already time to have a baby. At first, Kate tolerated it all because she loved her husband very much. She tried to smooth out the sharp edges, but the inner resentments filled her soul. The couple was already on the verge of divorce, but Kate suddenly became pregnant. It was a real miracle. The woman was happy, thought that now everything would be fine with Peter because he wanted to become a father so badly. But things turned out differently. Her husband got a job in a small commercial company as an engineer, and since then he has changed a lot. He bought new clothes, changed his haircut, and looked flawless. At first, Kate was happy, but then her husband started to stay late at work, sometimes coming home drunk. There were traces of red lipstick on the collar of his shirt. Kate never used such a vulgar color. The woman tried to talk to him, but Peter only excused himself. "Kate, I don't understand. What's the problem? When I was unemployed, you complained that I'm not a real man and can't provide for the family. Now I earn good money, and you complain again." Kate tried to calm down, thinking that soon she would have a baby and everything would change. Her husband would be rushing home every evening to spend time with the baby. However, after childbirth, the situation only worsened. Peter would freak out and yell when their son Paul would cry. He would get indignant. "Kate, do something. I can't even sleep. I'm going crazy with this. There's no peace at home." How long is this going to go on? The woman was indignant. Our son just has a tummy ache. It happens a lot with boys. My arms are already shaking from the pain. I've been rocking him day and night. Maybe you should take your son in your arms for at least an hour. Do you think it's easy for me? Raising a baby isn't easy, Peter. Don't you know that? Soon Paul will grow up and everything will get better. You just have to be patient. Her husband got out of bed, hastily dressed, and shouted, "I'm going for a walk. I need some fresh air. This is unbearable. I didn't realize that raising a child was a living hell. You know, I'll probably stay at the summer house for a while. It'll be better for everyone." Kate cried with resentment and helplessness. Her family was collapsing before her eyes. Peter turned out to be a terrible egoist. He didn't seem to hear her at all, and he didn't show any affection for their son. On the contrary, the baby seemed to annoy him. Over time, things got even worse. Peter would come home only to have lunch and change his clothes, and he paid no attention to Paul. The woman decided to check what her husband was doing alone at the summer house. That's where the truth was revealed. It turned out that Peter never lived at their summer house. He lived together with his rich mistress. His colleagues said that Peter was openly dating the CEO's daughter, Lisa. She promised the man a rapid promotion in his career. Kate cried for a long time, not daring to talk about it with her husband, and hoping that Peter would come to his senses and come back home. They quickly became strangers and no longer lived together. Family was just a formality, and their son was growing up without seeing his father. 6 months ago, her husband left the family, accusing Kate of all the sins, and hinted that his son didn't look like him at all. The woman was so offended by this that she slapped him in the face and said everything that had accumulated over the years. "Okay, go to your rich fool. Just make sure you don't regret it later. I never cheated on you. I loved you to the last second. But you only took advantage of that. Paul and I don't want anything from you. Understand?" That was the end of their marriage. Kate was a very prideful woman, and although she could get child support from her ex-husband, she refused the idea. If Peter doesn't want to support his son, she's not going to force him. So Kate became a single mother. And then, as luck would have it, things started to go wrong at work. The cunning head doctor began to force all doctors to prescribe expensive and rare medications to patients. They could only buy them in the pharmacy at the hospital. Obviously, both the head doctor and the pharmacist, and those doctors who were involved in this, received bonuses. Everyone was satisfied with it, but Kate flatly refused to do that. She realized that ordinary poor people, pensioners, or single mothers could not afford to buy such expensive medications. And why overpay when there are medications that are no less effective, but many times cheaper? Derek tried to persuade her. "Kate, I don't understand you. You're divorced. You're raising a baby alone. Some extra money won't hurt you. Don't be silly. I don't even want to hear anything about it. Yes, I need money, but I don't want to enrich myself at the expense of other people." Then the head doctor decided to get rid of her, and as soon as one of the doctors at the ambulance retired, he immediately transferred the stubborn doctor to her position. At first, Kate was very upset, because the shift lasted 24 hours. The salary was miserable, and there was no one to babysit Paul. But she had no choice. She needed something to live on, to raise her son. So the woman agreed. Fortunately, her neighbor Rebecca babysat Paul on the days when Kate was on shift. The young mother was very grateful, so she regularly checked the elderly woman's blood pressure and advised her on her illnesses. That's how they lived. But deep in her heart, Kate was suffering. She often thought sadly, "Why am I so unlucky? My family collapsed. My husband left me for a mistress. My work is no fun now, and I have so many problems. Paul is my only joy now, my red-haired sunshine. I live only for him, for his hugs and his warming gaze." The bus finally stopped at the right street. Kate got out, bought some food at the supermarket, and, of course, some sweets for her son and fresh pastries for her neighbor, and went to pick up Paul. He was happy to see his mom, talking non-stop, so she didn't want to go to sleep anymore. They cooked lunch together, then went to the playground, and only after that Kate decided to put the baby to bed. Without noticing, she fell asleep too, because of the sleepless night on the shift. The woman woke up abruptly as if from a jolt, and a thought popped into her head. When did I fall asleep? Where is Paul? He's just a baby. What if something happened? And then Kate noticed that she was carefully covered with a blanket, and the baby was quietly drying something at his baby table. She exhaled a sigh of relief and smiled. Paul was just a baby, but he was already worried about his mom. He saw that his mom was awake, came over, hugged her with his warm little arms, and whispered, "Did you sleep well, Mommy?" I was quiet. I didn't play around, so as not to wake you up. Don't get up. I'll bring you some milk and cookies. Want some? Kate even wept. She was so pleased with her son's care. She kissed him, pressed him tenderly against her, and whispered, "Thank you, my kind little boy. I love you so much. You are the best son." At such moments, all sorrows and hardships vanished somewhere, and Kate felt like the luckiest and happiest person on the planet. 2 days later, Kate was on the shift again. In the afternoon, the ambulance received a strange call from an upscale neighborhood where all the wealthy people lived. Normally, they never turned to the public hospital for help, preferring only their private doctors. Probably something extraordinary had happened. Their ambulance dispatcher gave them the coordinates, saying that the owner of the house suddenly felt unwell and fainted. The crew immediately headed there. They pulled up to a luxurious mansion with a fountain in the yard, rose bushes, alleys of unusual stones and ferns, and everything inside was shining with luxury. There were servants everywhere. A disgruntled boy and girl of about 18 sitting on a huge leather sofa, and the owner of the house, an unpleasant middle-aged lady, standing a little farther away. She was wearing expensive clothes, and her face did not have a single wrinkle, but her thin pinched lips and sharp long nose made her face look harsh and predatory. She worked nervously back and forth, tapping her heels on the floor. Kate coughed and asked, "Good afternoon. We received a call from you. Where is the sick person? What happened?" The woman looked at the doctor in a strange way and silently pointed to the closed door. Kate entered a bedroom with expensive, beautiful furniture. An elderly man of about 60 was lying on a huge oak bed. He was unconscious, with some paper in his hands. The doctor came closer and wanted to take this paper aside, but the sheet fell out of his hand right onto the floor. The woman quickly picked it up and noticed something very strange. It was a will, and her full name and year of birth were listed in the list of heirs. The woman shook her head. "What the? This is crazy. I don't understand anything. I don't even know this man. It's the first time I've seen him." "Okay, Kate, what are you thinking about? Pull yourself together and save the patient." His pulse was weak. Kate realized that the man was not only unconscious, he was dying. She and the nurse immediately started resuscitation measures, indirect heart massage, and adrenaline shot. Thank God they succeeded, and the patient started breathing normally. But his condition was still critical. The man saw Kate, was very surprised, and started talking some nonsense. Kate commanded confidently, "Okay, let's get the patient on a stretcher and get him to the intensive care unit. It's a massive heart attack. Miss, are you coming with us? Get his ID. We'll need it for admission." Then the lady immediately perked up and shouted in a nasty voice, "Are you out of your mind? Richard's not going anywhere. You helped him. Thank you. Now you can go. You know where the exit is. Our family has a reliable family doctor. I trust only him. I'll call him right now." But Kate didn't give up and began to shift the patient onto the stretcher. "Don't you understand? He can die at any minute. Is that what you want? Then write a refusal of hospitalization, and in case of the patient's death, you will be responsible for his death, not me." I don't want any trouble. I do everything according to instructions. Please don't stop us from saving his life." The lady went quiet. Apparently going to jail was not in her plans at all, and she reluctantly handed over the patient's ID and got into their ambulance. On the way, Kate asked questions about how and what had happened, but got no answers. All of this seemed strange to Kate. It seemed that his wife was not happy that her husband had survived. There was no sadness, no worry, not a tear in her eyes. But the doctor thought, "It's none of my business. I saved his life, and the rest is none of my business." The patient was immediately taken to the intensive care unit, and Kate checked his ID. "Strange. Our last names are different. Then why was my last name and initials listed in the list of heirs? I don't understand." After her 24-hour shift, Kate was exhausted, but still decided to stop by their intensive care unit and ask about the condition of that rich elderly man. She couldn't stop thinking about that will. But as soon as the woman opened the door, she was attacked by the patient's wife. She grabbed Kate by the hair and screamed, "Who the hell are you? Why did my husband put your name in the will? Are you his mistress? Come on, tell me, did you sleep with Richard?" A young boy and girl also surrounded Kate and shouted, "Did you expect to get our millions? No way." Kate was frightened and began to fight back, trying to explain everything. "Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? I'm not his mistress. I don't even know him. Yesterday I saw a patient for the first time. I live with my little son. I've never heard of any inheritance. And I don't have any rich relatives. I have no idea why my name was in that will. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to ask if he's okay. Leave me alone." What a crazy family. The nurses and orderlies came running to the noise and demanded that everyone calm down. After all, it was a hospital. Kate hurried away, but decided that she had to find out what was going on. Now she couldn't leave it like that. She was determined to find out what secret this mysterious patient was hiding. A week passed, and all this time Kate received threatening messages from unknown numbers every night. It said something like the following: "Refuse their inheritance, otherwise you'll regret it. Or you don't care about your son. Anything can happen to him." The woman was frightened. She imagined terrible pictures of the baby being stolen and taken away. She woke up in a cold sweat and could not calm down. She even turned for help to an old friend, Samuel, who worked at the police. They were former classmates. He accepted their information, but honestly replied that he couldn't help. The phone number wasn't identified, and it was unclear who was threatening her and why. Kate told him this dark story about the patient and suggested that she was probably being threatened by his relatives. Samuel frowned and advised her to send the baby to some safe place for a while, just in case, and wait to see how the situation develops. Kate agreed and took Paul to his grandmother. She was very old but agreed to look after Paul, and Kate calmed down a little. Richard finally came to his senses and was transferred to the therapy unit. Strangely enough, the man immediately called his security team and ordered them not to let anyone in, not even relatives, and told them to find Kate and bring her to him. The woman had just arrived from another call, and she and the guys were having coffee in the canteen. At that time, two big guys in black suits entered, found Kate, and politely said, "Good afternoon. You are Kate, right? A grateful patient whose life you saved. Richard wants to talk to you. He's very persistent." Kate got frightened and immediately replied, "No way. I was almost killed by his relatives. His wife almost ripped my hair out. I've had enough. I'm scared. And anyway, I'm at work. I can't go anywhere because the next call could come any minute." The men nodded understandingly, but still didn't leave, stomping on the spot. "Don't worry. We are guarding the ward. No one will interfere with you. Please try to understand us. The boss ordered us to find you. This is our job. It won't take long. You won't have any problems. We'll take care of it. Richard said he has something very important to tell you. He's actually a very nice man, honest, fair. Kate reluctantly agreed, asking her team to let her know if there was a call, and decided to go and see what it was all about. When she entered the room, she saw that the patient was already sitting leaning back on the cushions and reading the latest newspapers. She timidly said, "Hello. I see you're getting better. I'm happy for you. Why were you looking for me?" When the man saw Kate, he clutched his heart and said cheerfully, "Daughter, Kate, I've finally found you. Sweetheart, my girl. I am so happy to see you." The woman looked at him in confusion and replied, "What are you talking about, Richard? Should I call a doctor? There's no way you could be my dad. I grew up in a normal family, and I know who my parents are. My dad Vincent is an engineer, and my mom Maria is a retired pediatrician. I decided to become a doctor because I wanted to be like my mom. I can't be your relative at all." But the man replied nervously, "No, I'm not crazy. Please just listen to me, I beg you. I wasn't born with a golden spoon in my mouth like many people around me. I was born in a dysfunctional, poor family. And since I was a child, my parents abused and deprived me of everything. I dreamed that one day I'd be Richard. I did everything I could until I started my own business. I even sold used cars, and one day even opened an illegal casino. I made a lot of money, but it was dirty money. Besides, my competitors were constantly threatening me. Then I married Amelia. I love her very much. She was also from a poor family, and she tolerated what I was doing. She tolerated the threats and constant relocations. Soon Amelia got pregnant. She was very scared, and she begged me to stop, get a normal job, and live like all normal families. But I was young and ambitious. I felt like a king of life, and I didn't want to give up my business. Soon I paid a heavy price for my carelessness towards my family. An irreparable tragedy happened. My beloved died in childbirth, although she had never complained about her health before. I took you from the hospital and chose the name Kate. But I was young and completely inexperienced. I didn't know what to do with a baby. I didn't know how to tear myself between cooking, laundry, and business. So I hired a nanny, an experienced woman who immediately found a common language with you and helped me with all my household chores. I was happy and plunged back into work. But while I was organizing the funeral of my wife and looking for a nanny, I started having problems with my competitors. They took advantage of my weakness. I had to leave the country immediately to escape. If I had stayed, I would have been killed or imprisoned. I left a lot of money for the nanny and asked her to look after you. I was going to come back for you in a month because I didn't know where I was going. I've regretted it all my life. While I was figuring out where and how to live, and most importantly, how to start a new business, 3 months flew by. I transferred money to the nanny regularly, and I was sure that everything was fine. I couldn't come for you myself, so I asked my friend to bring you to me. That's when he told me the terrible news. It turned out that the nanny was afraid of threats, and when I didn't come back after a month, as promised, she left you in a basket at the door of the orphanage, leaving only a note that your name was Kate. She didn't even give them your last name. I begged my friend to find out everything. The nanny told the whole truth, but time was wasted. The orphanage workers told him that you were adopted by a nice childless couple, but they refused to give us information about them, even though I offered a lot of money. I hated the nanny and blamed her for everything, realizing that I had lost you forever. And then I began to blame myself. My conscience burned me from the inside because I turned out to be a terrible father. Time passed, and 3 years later I came back, settled down, started my own tourist business, and started to make a lot of money. This time, everything was legal. At first, I tried to find you, I swear, but all in vain. I couldn't prove that the little Kate they found outside the orphanage was my daughter. The nanny was so scared that she burned your birth certificate. I wanted to destroy everything around me, But Nanny just cried and swore that she only wanted what was best for you, and truly believed she had saved your life that way. A year later, I got married to a young beauty, Lauren. She already had a daughter from her first marriage, Haley. She was about your age. And then Lauren got pregnant and gave birth to our son, Max. So I gave up all attempts to find you and immersed myself in work and a new family. But my conscience still reminded me of you. After all, my children grew up in luxury and wealth. They had absolutely everything they wanted. And I kept thinking about the little girl in my arms. I kept asking myself, is everything okay with my little girl? Where is my Kate? And each time I reassured myself, thinking, if they adopted you, they wanted to have a baby. So they love you, and you are happy. And yet I was so sad that I lost you because of my own carelessness. That's how my young years passed. My children are grown up now. I gave them an excellent education. I expected gratitude. I thought my son would follow in my footsteps and become the head of my business in time. But Max only wastes my money in nightclubs, and he can't get enough of it. His appetite is increasing every day. Haley is also not in a hurry to find a job, even though I offered her good positions 100 times or could help her start her own business if she wanted to. But she doesn't want that headache. All Haley does is travel and waste my money. Neither son nor daughter is in a hurry to start a family. They don't want to grow up, even though they are both in their 30s. 6 months ago, my heart suddenly started to ache. More and more. I went to good doctors, took all the tests, and they informed me that I had a big problem. I might need an urgent operation, and they would need blood donors. That's when I asked my whole family to do a blood test, hoping that one of them could become a donor for me. But it turned out that my son Max has a completely different blood type and phenotype, and technically he can be my son. But the probability of this is very low. At first, I couldn't believe it. So I secretly took a DNA test, and it was confirmed he wasn't my son. So Lauren got pregnant by someone else. This news almost killed me. I was devastated. I was lost. I was getting worse and worse every month. So I decided to write a will. That's when I thought of you, my daughter. I couldn't let strangers get my entire fortune, while my own daughter didn't get a penny. I was a terrible father. I lost you, and I missed the opportunity to raise you, but I had to compensate you somehow. I hired the best detectives to find you, and after a long search, they finally succeeded. They found out who adopted you, where you live now, where you work. As soon as I found out that you were a doctor on the ambulance, saving people's lives, raising a little son alone, I even wept. You're so wonderful, Kate. You became a decent person, a mother. I'm proud of you, my girl. So, I've decided to meet you in person, repent, and announce my will in front of everyone. I want you to have everything you need and to live decently. So after my death, you will receive a good income every month. I don't know how else to redeem myself, and I'm begging you to at least let me help you financially. I had planned everything, but I didn't say anything to my family yet. I just told them that a big surprise was waiting for them. And then I called an ambulance on purpose and made sure that you were the one to come. My friends helped to organize it. Then Lauren made me some herbal tea. It had a bitter flavor, very unpleasant. I remember drinking it, and that was it. I fainted. I woke up when you were saving my life. I tried to tell you who I was, but you couldn't understand anything. Kate, forgive me for all this masquerade. I wanted to surprise you, to make you happy, but I only caused trouble for you again. Sorry. Kate stared in shock at the nice elderly man who was calling her daughter. It was so strange. She had wonderful parents, and she couldn't believe that she wasn't their biological daughter, because they were her nearest and dearest. They loved her so much. Her dad passed away, and her mom's babysitting her grandson right now. How is that possible? She hesitantly replied, honestly, I'm shocked by what I've heard. and I'm not ready to believe it yet and accept you as a family member. I'm sorry. I'm grateful that you decided to take care of me. But you know, it got me in trouble. First, your wife and kids beat me, insulted me, and then they started sending threatening messages. They threatened my son. I was so scared. I even filed a police report and took my son to my mom. So I don't need anything from you. I don't need your help, and I don't need your money. All I want is to get rid of your family. I want them to leave me and my son alone. And one more thing, I may be wrong, but I think your wife poisoned you. The fact that you survived is a miracle. If we'd arrived a few minutes later, I wouldn't have been able to save you. I checked your test results. You don't have any heart disease, but you have traces of a very dangerous substance in your blood. It's probably not the first time someone's tried to kill you. Think about it. When I said we had to take you to the emergency room right away, your wife screamed and tried to stop us. And on the way to the hospital, it seemed like she was angry that we had time to save you. Richard was very upset, almost crying. He clenched his fists. What scoundrels! I knew it. I knew it would end up like this. I will immediately tell the security guards to kick them out of my house. I'm sorry, Kate. I didn't mean for this to happen. The woman replied stubbornly and resolutely. Well, no, I'm not going to live in fear, because they won't stop until they eliminate either you or me, or even worse, if they hurt my son. I can't let that happen. They should go to jail. All of them. Richard sighed heavily. You're absolutely right. But how can I prove that my family is involved? After all, they pretend to worry about me. They've convinced everyone around that they really love me and are doing everything possible to save me. No one will believe me. Kate suggested we should talk to Samuel, the police captain. He's my good friend. He can help. But for now, you need to heal and gain strength. I'll help you, Father. I won't let your relatives drive you to the grave. Richard was so deeply touched. He held out his big hands to her. Let me hug you. Please. It's so important to me right now. Please. I don't understand how it happened that my only daughter, whom I lost years ago through my own fault, happens to be the only person who cares about me. Kate trembled, couldn't stand it, and hugged her father, and her heart melted. She caught herself thinking that she really cared, that she felt sorry for her father, because no one needed him, no matter how rich he was. And she was determined to help him, not because of their inheritance, but simply because she really cared about him. The woman had a long conversation with the police captain, told him everything, and he proposed a clever plan. It was risky, but it was their only way to prove the guilt of the bastards. They had prepared a special operation. Kate switched on the voice recorder. Samuel promised to be around to help her, and they agreed that as soon as she opened the window, it was time to rescue her. Kate was shaking with fear. Only now did she realize that she was risking her life, because she was going into the lair of deceitful and desperate people, and they were ready to do anything to get the money. Her heart was racing, and cold sweat covered her back, but she exhaled, pulled herself together, and knocked on the door. A huge dog barked in the yard, and Lauren opened the door. She squinted angrily and asked, "Well, hello, Eris. What are you doing here?" Kate answered as calmly as possible. "May I come in? We need to talk. Or are you going to attack me from the doorstep again? Come in. Let's talk." Lauren let Kate inside. Richard's son and daughter came out of the living room. All three of them stared at her incomprehensibly and suspiciously. The guest exhaled and began, "Don't look at me like that. And please don't send me threatening messages again. I decided to give up their inheritance. I do not need your money. I'm ready to sign any papers. Just leave me alone." Lauren smiled contentedly, and Max suddenly looked at Haley and said, "Right decision. Don't worry about not getting their inheritance. But you know, you can make a lot of money. I'm willing to pay you whatever you say. You can easily enter my father's room." "Right." They let you in. Get rid of that old fool any way you can. We didn't think he'd be so robust. We've been poisoning him for 6 months and still no luck. The day you came to our house, we put a huge dose in his tea, but he survived anyway. And now the guards won't let us see him. He probably started to suspect something." Kate was shocked by this. She couldn't stand it and said, "Are you out of your mind? How could you suggest such a thing to me? And how do you even imagine it? Am I supposed to strangle him?" Lauren said angrily, "He is very rich. He has millions. We could simply enjoy life for the rest of our days. But he is forcing the kids to work, to get a job, to do something. I can't take it anymore. You know, you don't have to strangle him. I have a better plan." At this moment, Lauren pulled out several ampoules of some clear substance from the dresser. "Here, take this and put it in his four. It's only a few seconds work, but will pay very good money. Don't doubt it. It's a good deal." Kate swallowed her saliva convulsively and carefully took the ampoule from Lauren's hands, put it in her pocket, and went to the window, opened it wide with the words, "Excuse me, I feel unwell." The police saw the signal and immediately rushed into the house, breaking down the front door, and immediately seized the vile criminals. From the surprise, the bastards even tried to fight back, not believing what was going on. Lauren laughed angrily. "You are so stupid. You can't prove anything. The ampoule isn't mine. It's in your pocket. Get the murderer. This woman tried to poison my husband." But Samuel cooled her ardor. "Lady, don't even try to lie. The whole conversation was recorded. Moreover, the ampoule obviously has your fingerprints on it. Besides, the traces of an unknown drug were found in the victim's blood. So now we'll know what you tried to poison your spouse with. So get ready. An exciting trip to the police station awaits you. You can forget about soft pillows and gourmet dinners for the next few years, but there will be plenty of time to think about the returnal." Max looked around frantically, trembling. Haley was crying, and Lauren was cursing Kate. "You must be Richard's lover. Otherwise, you wouldn't care so much about him. Where the hell did you come from? Come on, answer me." Kate replied quietly, "You are wrong, lady. I'm his daughter, biological daughter, and I won't let some scoundrels kill my father. I hope to see you in court." The trio got what they deserved. No matter how hard his ex-wife Lauren tried to justify herself in court, no matter how much Haley cried, the judge didn't become more loyal to them and passed the harsher sentence. Richard finally recovered. Gradually, his relationship with his daughter improved and became really warm and close. The man was immensely grateful to his daughter because she saved his life twice in such a short time, found the strength to forgive her father, and started communication from scratch. Kate introduced Richard to his grandson and they immediately became friends. Richard showered him with gifts, rolled him on his lap, and read bedtime stories. However, the woman had no idea how to introduce her biological father to her foster mom. How to even tell her that now she knew the truth. Besides, she wanted to know how she was adopted. And one day she made up her mind, asked her mother to come over, cooked dinner, called her father too, and was the first to start such an important conversation. "Mommy, please don't worry. I want to introduce you to Richard. I don't even know how to tell you this. He's my biological father. I know everything. Mom, I know I'm not your daughter." The older woman turned pale and looked anxiously at her daughter, then looked intently at Richard and said quietly, "So you are that gangster? You don't look like a gangster, more like a scientist. Vincent and I couldn't have children. I had health problems, and I was undergoing treatment for a long time. I was a doctor myself, so I believed that I could become a mom. But the years went by. We were already in our 40s, but we still didn't have children. We both suffered a lot. Everyone around us already had teenage children. They only talked about them, and I had nothing to say. You know, I've been a pediatrician all my life. One day, a little girl from the orphanage was admitted to the ward with bronchitis. The orphanage workers said she was abandoned and that her father was a gangster. But that's all I know. As soon as I took you in my arms, I fell in love. I still remember your big blue eyes and chubby lips. You immediately stopped crying. In my arms, you calmed down and fell asleep. I had to go to other patients, but I was standing like a monument in the middle of the room, crying, holding you, and whispering, I will never leave you, my little girl. At home, I told my husband everything, and he agreed to adopt the child. He loved you, you know that. He loved you very much. You became our sunshine, the meaning of life, our little daughter. I've never regretted adopting you. I'm sorry we never told you the truth, but that's only because we didn't consider you adopted. You know, you're our daughter, and you'll always be our daughter. Kate cried, unable to contain her emotions. She hugged her mom and whispered, I love you too, Mom. I've always sensed your love, and Daddy's love. I didn't even realize I wasn't your biological daughter. Thank you for a happy childhood, for your affection and kindness. Richard also thanked Maria sincerely. I am very grateful to you for raising my daughter to be such a wonderful, kind, and compassionate person. I am a great businessman, but a terrible father. Now, in my old age, I'm trying to fix the mistakes of my youth. I hope that now we will see each other often and communicate because we are a family. Kate was happy that there were no more secrets, no more misunderstandings. They had dinner as a real family, talked a lot about the past, about life, and of course, they didn't forget about Paul. He amused everyone by puffing up his cheeks and trying to play the child's flute that Richard had given him. Now Kate's life had changed dramatically. She no longer had to work 3 jobs. Her father helped her financially, so she transferred to a part-time job. Now she could spend more time with her son, get enough sleep, and finally feel like a beautiful young woman. She went to a beauty salon, chose a stylish haircut, bought new elegant clothes, and it seemed that she had become at least 5 years younger. Rumors that Kate had found her biological father, a millionaire, and that he was now supporting her financially, quickly spread throughout the city and reached her ex-husband, Peter. His mistress had left him long ago, as soon as he showed his true face and bad temper, and quit his job, demanding to support him. So now the man was looking for a job again. After learning such amazing news about his ex-wife, Peter immediately decided to take such a chance and began to call Kate often and beg for forgiveness, saying that he missed her and their son and that the boy should not grow up without a father. He brazenly lied, saying that he loved them more than life. In the beginning, Kate's heart trembled. The remnants of former feelings arose in her soul, and the woman naively thought, what if Peter has changed? Life punished him. He was left with nothing again. Maybe he came to his senses and changed. We can start all over again, live together, raise our son together. Peter was persistent, waited for her at the entrance every day, gave her beautiful flowers, as he used to do when they were young, and talked about love. Finally, Kate made up her mind and invited her ex-husband for dinner, hoping in her heart for reconciliation. She prepared for the date intensely, cooked dinner, set the table, put on a beautiful dress, and did her makeup. Peter came with flowers and sweets, and he had a toy airplane in his hands. Little Paul ran out to meet him, but he didn't recognize his father, as he had almost never seen him. He was still a baby when his parents divorced. The boy looked curiously at the man, then at the airplane in his hands, and asked, Mom, who is this man? Peter splashed his hands, abruptly took the boy in his arms, and said loudly with reproach, Paul, I'm your daddy. Have you forgotten me? The child immediately started crying and called his mother. Kate looked with reproach at her husband and began to soothe the child. Peter, what the hell are you doing? You frightened the child. He's only 3 years old now, and when we separated he was only 2. Of course he doesn't remember you. Don't you understand? Give him time. He needs to get used to you. Wait until Paul calms down, and then you can try talking to him again. Peter pretended to be calm, but the child's behavior made him very angry. He drank 2 glasses of wine in a gulp and said, "He's my son and I'm his father." "What do you mean he's not used to it? It's your fault he doesn't remember me. A child should love both of his parents." The man drank some more and shouted, "Paul, come here. Dad's calling." The boy turned around frightened, but didn't make a single step toward him. Kate tensed up even more. She didn't like the whole situation. Peter was pressuring the child too much, trying to be a strict father. Besides, he was already drunk. She answered for her son as gently as possible. "Leave the child alone. Please don't scare him even more. Do you want him to love you or be afraid of you? Why did you even come here? To make up or to demonstrate your bad temper again? I'd already forgotten how hot-tempered you are." "Peter, the years go by but you don't change." The man realized that he was going the wrong way because he expected to make up and get Kate's money. But the fact that Paul had forgotten him hurt his ego so much that his bad temper prevailed again. Peter began to speak in a very different tone of voice. "I am also his parent, and I have the right to see my son. I can even take him away on weekends if I want to. Do you understand? And I will decide how to raise my son. I want him to grow up to be a strong man, not a pampered weak coward." Peter tried taking the child in his arms again and kept repeating to him, "I'm your father. I'm your daddy. Okay, you have to obey me." Paul cried again, threw the toy airplane on the floor, and screamed, "Mom, I'm afraid of this man. Ask him to go away." The boy broke out of his father's embrace and hid in his mother's warm arms. It was cozy and peaceful there. Kate stroked the boy's head, soothing him. Then she said abruptly, "You know what, Peter? Go away. Nothing's going to work out. Your son is afraid of you, and you don't even try to understand the child's world. Don't call me again and don't follow me. Please. We have different ways, and we are not destined to be together. I finally realized it. I'm sorry." The man clenched his fists and said angrily, "I'll leave now, but I'll come back. And I will get permission through the court to see Paul. And you won't be able to stop me." Kate grinned bitterly. "Okay, you'll get permission. And what then? Do you think you can force a child to love you? Don't be silly. Paul should want to communicate with you, but he's afraid of you." But Peter only said calmly, "We'll see. I'm not saying goodbye." From that day on, Kate's life turned into a living hell. Peter kept following her. He was waiting for her and Paul near the kindergarten. He tried to talk to the boy, bought him presents, and told him how much he missed him. But for some reason, Kate no longer believed him. She sensed lies in his words, and Paul still behaved cautiously. For the sake of his ex-wife's money, the man was ready to do anything, and one day out of desperation he decided to commit a crime. One day, Kate came to the kindergarten to pick up Paul, but the frightened caregiver informed her that his father had already picked up the child half an hour ago. The woman was shocked and screamed, "Father? What father? We are divorced. Why did you give him my son? Where am I supposed to look for him now? I don't even know where my ex lives now. I'll sue you." The caregiver was sobbing. She realized that she had no right to give the child to a stranger, and she justified herself as best she could. "But I didn't know. I recently saw you together, here, near this building. The child seemed to be playing with his father. I didn't suspect anything. Your husband was sober and polite. Paul didn't cry, and he willingly went home with his father. So I assumed everything was fine. Maybe nothing terrible happened. Maybe your husband just wanted to spend some time with his child." But Kate sensed that Peter was planning something terrible. He didn't show up in the child's life for 3 years. Why would he suddenly want to communicate with him now, even when they were still living together? The baby only annoyed him. And then he accused her that Paul wasn't his son. And now he suddenly realized that he has a son. No, there's something wrong. Kate was frightened. It was getting dark outside, but she still didn't know where Paul was and whether he was all right. She and her father went to Samuel. The woman begged, "Please help me find my son. My ex-husband took him away without informing me, and I don't even know where he lives now. My husband doesn't answer the phone. I don't know what to do. I don't even understand why Peter did it. Paul has almost forgotten him. I can only imagine how stressed the child is right now." The policeman cheered Kate up. "Okay, don't panic. Tell me the last name and everything you know about your ex-husband. I guess it's not a problem to find out his address." Suddenly, Kate's phone rang. It was Peter. Finally, the woman immediately shouted into the receiver, "Peter, what kind of stupid joke is this? Where is my son? Who allowed you to pick him up from kindergarten? Immediately bring my child back to me." The man laughed into the receiver and replied indifferently, "Who can forbid me to take my son? Have I been deprived of my parental rights? No. I told you I won't leave you alone, and I'll see Paul whenever I want." Kate heard her son crying in the background and couldn't control her emotions. "Peter, why is my son crying? I beg you, bring him back to me. What do you want? You don't really need your son. I can see that. I know you too well, and I know that you want something from me. Finally, you got it. Now, let's get to the point. If you want me to disappear from your life again, you have to pay me. I think $100,000 will be enough as an initial payment. I know that you're a rich heiress now. Don't be stingy, or I'll never leave you alone. He is my son. I'm not doing anything illegal, so you can't do anything about it." Kate had the phone on speaker the whole time, and everyone could hear the conversation. Samuel nodded for her to agree. The woman replied, "You are trying to sell your child. Okay, I agree. Where should I bring the money and where is Paul? And please, don't damage the child's psyche. Let me talk to him." Kate talked to the kid for a couple of minutes, calmed him down as best she could, and promised to take him home very soon. The policeman took out a bag full of money from the safe. Of course, it was fake cash for various special operations. Finally, they headed off to Peter's apartment. On the way, Kate was indignant. "I can't believe it. Paul is his son. How can he do that? And why did I love him so much? My poor son, he must have been scared. Is this idiot going to bother me for the rest of my life? I mean, he's right. Nobody has deprived him of his parental rights, so he can do that again and again." Samuel replied confidently, "Don't worry about anything. I took the money for a reason. Once your husband gets it, he's trapped. I will talk to him in such a way that he will never bother you again. Remember that I will always protect you, Kate. I've loved you since junior school, but you still don't notice anything. I would be a faithful and loving husband. Like a dog, I'd protect you from all the bad things. And I'd love Paul. But you still treat me like an old friend." Kate fell silent and suddenly looked at Samuel in a different way. But right now she didn't care about anything he told her. She had to help her son. The mission was successful. Peter greedily grabbed the bag with the money and started counting it. Kate quickly dressed Paul, who happily hugged his mother. But as soon as they left, Samuel burst into the apartment, grabbed the scoundrel, and explained what was waiting for him in jail. Peter didn't expect such a scenario. He was sure Kate was still single. He had no idea she had such a defender. The man was scared to death. Going to jail was not in his plans. He swore he wouldn't bother his ex-wife again. Then Samuel said sternly, "Listen to me. If you bother Kate ever again, or try to threaten Paul, you'll have to deal with me. Got it?" Peter nodded his head and was glad he got off easy. Only now he realized that he had lost his wife forever, and he would never win back his son's trust. He tried to communicate with him. He even treated him with expensive pizza. But the boy only whimpered and called for his mother. Peter was confused and didn't know how to calm him down. Then he caught himself thinking that he was really a terrible father, and he didn't really want to raise a child. So he decided to sell him and earn some money. But there was no profit in it either. A warm feeling, love for his own child, never arose in Peter's selfish and callous soul. He was heartless. Alas, such people do not change for the better over the years. On the contrary, they become cynics and egoists. Kate was so grateful to Samuel. Now he was like a guardian angel to her. Surprisingly, Paul immediately liked him, talked to him willingly, and played with him, probably sensing a kind soul. Samuel began to visit them more and more often. The three of them went for walks and talked a lot, and Kate unexpectedly fell in love with her childhood friend, even though she hadn't noticed him for so many years. It was so calm and safe with Samuel. After all, that's the most important thing for a woman, when she is loved and protected.